Hello everybody and welcome back with our new topic. Our topic for today is going to be about the polygram. The polygram is the analysis of the cardiac activity. It measures the mechanical activity of the heart, while the ECG or the electrocardiography measures the electrical activity of the heart. The polygram is measured by 4 different types. It can be measured by the atrial pressure curve and the venous pressure curve, which is recorded at the jugular vein level and is called the jugulogram. The second type of measurement, which is the aortic pressure curve, which is recorded at the carotid artery level and is called the carotidogram. The third type of polygram measurement, which is the phonocardiography, and it records the heart sounds. And finally the fourth type, which is the ventricular volume, and is evaluated by the apexocardiogram. The heart has mechanical, electrical, acoustic and echocardiographic events which are during the cardiac cycle. The cardiac cycle begins with the atrial contraction, which is phase 1 of the cardiac cycle, and has 3 subparts, which is the rapid ventricular filling, decreased ventricular filling, and atrial systole. Phase 3 has 2 subparts, which is the rapid and decreased ventricular ejection. Now we're going to be talking about the pressure waves in veins. The systemic veins have pressure waves, which is called the venous pulse. So the venous pulse is the pressure waves in the systemic veins. It can be retrograde action of the heartbeat during the cardiac cycle, or it can be due to the respiratory cycle, or due to the contraction of skeletal muscles. The jugular vein has a complex pulse wave synchronized to the cardiac cycle, which has 3 peaks labeled by A, C, and V, and 3 minima labeled as AV, X, and Y. The pressure transients in the jugular vein pulse reflect events in the cardiac cycle. Now we're going to be talking about the peaks and the minimas in the jugulogram. The A peak is caused by the contraction of the right atrium. The AV minimum is due to the relaxation of the right atrium and closure of the tricuspid valves. The C peak reflects the pressure rise in the right ventricle early during systole and the resultant bulging of the tricuspid valve, which has just closed into the right atrium. The X minimum occurs as the ventricle contracts and shortens during the ejection phase later in the systole. The shortening heart with tricuspid valve still closed pull-ups and therefore elongates the veins, lowering their pressure down. The V peak is related to filling of the right atrium against a closed tricuspid valve, which causes right atrial pressure to slowly rise. As the tricuspid valve opens, the V peak begins to wane. And finally, the Y minimum, which reflects a fall in right atrial pressure during the rapid ventricular filling, as blood leaves the right atrium through an open tricuspid valve and enters the right ventricle. The increase in venous pressure after the Y minimum occurs as venous return continues in the face of reduced ventricular filling. The venous pressure changes can be, for example, in example A, the time scale is a single cardiac cycle. The relative heights of the peaks and valleys are variable. But in B and C, the time scale surrounds one protracted inspiration, example several heartbeats, while the y-axis shows the mean jugular vein pressure. The effects of the respiratory cycle on the jugulogram. During inspiration, the diaphragm descends, causing the intrathoracic pressure to decrease, and therefore the pressure inside the thoracic vessels also decrease, and the intra-abdominal pressure to increase. The venous return from the head and upper extremities transiently increases too, as low pressure vessels literally suck blood into the thoracic cavity. Simultaneously, the venous flow decreases from the lower extremities because of the relatively high pressure of the abdominal veins during inspiration. Therefore, during inspiration, pressure in the jugular vein falls while pressure in the femoral veins rise. So this was the jugulogram pressure curves. Thank you very much and hope to see you soon again in the next video.